Hello and welcome to Spare Change Podcast. Today I'll be talking about basically a follow up to my conversation on centralized banking digital currency or CBDC and where I think it's headed in the next 5 to 10 years. So, earlier today, there were a few articles, I'll cite them below, but basically discussing the UK and overall European markets shifting towards enabling digital currency as payment in their own individual markets and how it might influence the economy overall, um, both with a digital pound, so pound sterling in the UK and broader European markets, a digital euro, um, and then over in the US, how that kind of shift in the market kind of pushes us into establishing a digital dollar, and all of these would be issued by central banks. So federal and treasury banks would issue digital currency to smaller banks across the globe, across the country, and then we would be issued that as payment rather than say or it would be offered for you to purchase as holdings. So, in the same way that you purchase gold, you would purchase a digital dollar, and then it would become a new metric, new way that people can pay. And your finances would be on the blockchain, but it would be the equivalent of existing cash value dollars or cash value pounds or cash value euros. And it's interesting to think what are we doing as a society to kind of check, balance, and regulate this? I think that's my biggest issue with it currently is what are the regulatory steps to ensure that digital currency doesn't like devalue the overall cash holdings of like every country's general population. Because when we talk about digital assets and the holdings that everyone's going to have of either digital or cash assets, floating a new version of the same currency might dilute the existing kind of pool of money that we are all living and circulating. What would it mean for the average consumer if they're not able to access these digital assets in the same way that businesses and banks are? Um, Probably no real significant change, but the idea that we are shifting towards a smartphone, smart card, accessible cash equivalent, it begs to question, like, or it begs to be answered. What are the requirements? Do I have to have digital currency to interact and purchase certain goods? Um, so in the same way that some companies only accept payments on, let's say, the Ethereum blockchain, would I then be limited because countries are saying, the US, the UK, Europe, global markets, they're all saying, this is a push for accessibility and how can we make financial tools more accessible? I find it hard to believe that when the global markets for cryptocurrency are facing an issue of availability and accessibility and even adoption, people don't really, in mass scale, people don't really have crypto holdings or even like wallets for digital assets. The large and overwhelming majority of people are not investing in these ways. So what makes this what sets apart a government initiative to circulate this currency? So when you talk about pushing out new currency or when the Fed pr- prints out money. That's one way that currency is circulated. But if everyone gets assigned a digital wallet and the same issues and risks that already exist in the crypto and Web3 space, so like rug pulls, scams, hacking, when all of those things are still prevalent, how are we going to in mass regulate without disrupting that cash flow? So let's say now everybody's on this digital currency and it's being spread and paid through different wallets, and the people who have access to it, either they don't understand it and they don't care about it, or there are a few whales at the top who are kind of buying this currency up in a way that kind of shows that they're eager and they're first in that market. And you can accumulate more of it, but I think the holdings from like direct purchase might have limitations based on the articles that I'll source below. But even if direct purchase and acquisition of digital currency is limited in the initial transaction, someone will figure out a way to be paid in a central bank digital currency. And then when it starts to be accumulated, it doesn't resolve the problems that I think that we're trying to get after. When we talk about building a currency that's accessible, um, do we really believe that the overall market will accept it over what they've come to know and trust, which is like either physical assets like gold, real estate, and cash? Or do we just kind of see this divide where everyone who's in and has a digital wallet and is invested in cryptocurrency, they remain kind of the primary market and target for any regulation or any new issue of currency? Or do we see this new mass adoption because it's the same thing as cash? I use air quotes there because cash is cash, and then everything else is either cash equivalent or it is a decentralized asset or it's issued currency. I definitely have a lot of different thoughts on it. I would love to have more conversations, gain more knowledge. But considering that the current efforts are to establish digital currency or begin pilot testing digital currency within the next 7 years. So we're in 2023 now. 2030 is the like goalpost. What is going to drastically change in the next 7 years that's going to cause a push towards digital currency in a global market? I think that the nature of digital currency allows for some authenticity and transparency overall. So digital currency allows for a lot more record keeping in a way that is very auditable, and it's not the same thing that it used to be where it's like cryptocurrency is this dark market and people are using it to commit fraud and commit different crimes and money launder. I think that exists. There's always a black market or a gray market in which cash flows nefariously between bad actors, and that definitely exists in the crypto space. Um, and it's very prevalent right now because people are focused on it. But as technology changes, develops, will we all move into a cashless society at a rate that's acceptable? Or are people going to fight back? People are going to say, hey, no, this isn't something we're interested in. I think there's going to be a huge divide on this. And that's the perspective I maintain, because the people that are talking about centralized banking digital currency are the people that are pushing it, or the people that are just kind of concerned as to what it all is going to entail. So there isn't this like middle ground of, hey, that sounds interesting, how do I get involved? It's more so, This side doesn't like it. That side does. And there's a lot to be said for that. I think seeing three major markets, so euros, dollars, and pounds, seeing those different economies interact in a space where digital currency is an issued and traded asset on the blockchain, yet to be seen. But beyond just being a digital like space and digital ecosystem for forex trading or um, promissory notes and like debt management, I don't know how exactly the broader market comes into play. Sure, there's accessibility, and now everyone with a phone can touch the stuff, but between limited holdings, between the adoption rate of whatever this is, you can issue it to people, but are they going to use it? Are they going to circulate the currency in the way that is expected? Are they going to pay out from a digital wallet um, for whatever goods or services they want to spend that money on? Are they going to invest in it? Are they going to pay it to the banks that they got it from and use it to manage debt? That's another thing that's yet to be seen. And the third thing is, how effectively is it going to be managed? How are regulations and taxes with it going to work? I know there's talk about interest and how exactly the investment side of it will be managed. Um, and it's going to be a consistent topic that I'll refer back to and say, hey, this is what I thought then. So in my last video for central banking digital assets, digital currency, kind of compared it to, I think I said, it's the government's way of regulating cryptocurrency, and it might not be too far off from what I said then. Um, Maybe not necessarily a cryptocurrency, but a new way of issuing the same existing currency. Um, we've seen issues in the past with like different crypto coins that are supposed to be tethered to existing currencies, existing assets, and things like Tether, where what was a digital twin of the dollar then became diluted because of the way that it was being managed on the back end. And then people start to question, is this actually tied to the dollar, and what back end, what kind of foundation, what kind of um, actual physical currency was it being backed by? And it turns out, it might not be a perfect twin or a perfect like tied asset. So it's going to be probably a difficult 7-year process if we really are saying 2030 is going to be the year of centralized banks issuing digital currency. Um, it is going to be an uphill journey. And from my perspective, it's mostly a marketing ploy right now. All digital currency is just something that people invest in, and then it either gets significantly reduced in value over time, or people have found ways to manipulate and um, create a negative conversation around it based on whether it's secure or whether it's even something that's actually being taken care of as far as who's managing it. Uh, and when we talk about central banks, trust in banks is a huge issue over time and throughout history. So when banks start doing new things, those things come into question. And that's kind of what I'm here for, is, what are we doing to make sure this is effective, make sure it's actually something that we need? Who's regulating it? Why is it a thing? Who's going to use it? Who's actually going to care about it? Those are my questions in relation to the digital assets, digital dollars, or other currencies globally and how we're going to interact with it. So that's my take in 2023. We'll see how it develops over time and where we all sit in 2030. Would love to have more conversations about that. So if you found this video interesting, if you think that some of the topics that I'm discussing are worthwhile, feel free to like, follow, share this podcast with like-minded folks, people who are interested in topics. And go ahead and drop a follow to our podcast Instagram over at Spare Change Podcast on Instagram. Links will be below. And have a great day. Stay safe. Take care of yourself, both financially and spiritually. And we'll see you all next week.